G'day Eagles fans and welcome to this week's episode of the Inside Swoop, all thanks to Jim Beam. Scoey, how are we?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay, mate. We looked home with a minute 40 to go in the last, but alas, we do not come away with our second straight victory in a matter of weeks. And I thought it was very commendable, more so, that they fought from 5 goals down. Very easy to lay down in that situation, showed tremendous grit, which kind of made the loss a little bit harder to stomach.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen that from them this year already, haven't we? That the momentum swings and then they can't fight back, and there hasn't been that fight. So to show that, and, you know, off the back of a win last week against North Melbourne, and then to show, you know, the ability to rectify a momentum swing, which really is what footy's about these days. It's about how can you lessen the run-ons the other team gets, and when you have that run-on, really make the most of it, which, you know, West Coast did pretty well for most of the day. Essendon, that little run on the second quarter, but overall, great effort. And I think probably the most important part about the game is, and we've seen bits and pieces, I think there's a real style starting to emerge of how West Coast play, which is a more contested brand, which is a more pressure brand than they've given previously. They've still got the intercepting power behind the ball, and we saw that late from some of the senior players, but it's a faster, more contested brand than we've seen before, and we're starting to see more of it.
The forward pressure for the second straight week was immense. Like, we lose tackle count by 14, but inside 50 tackles we're up 16 to 10. And I reckon this bloke's got a fair bit to do with it. Jamie Cripps, his contest around the footy when locking the pill in is second to none around the comp. But tell me he didn't almost single-handedly bring us back in this third term with his 2 instrumental plays.
I don't know where he's learnt that little flip out the back to Jack Petruccelli. That's a ruckman type areas, isn't it? Cripper came off the back again of last week, huge tackle numbers. His game, he's a hybrid player. He plays a high work rate role that he can sometimes play taller than he is, but his pressure and his tackles and his leadership is probably something that goes a little under the radar, maybe externally. And I think it's starting to show with him back in the team. Well, he broke his leg. He's back in the team. Didn't hang up the boots for the year, and he's really, you know, proving his worth.
It doesn't shock you that Duggo stepped into the midfield role a bit more. I think 18 of the 25 CBDs he attended, the most since 2020. That's a bit of a Jimby, Shuey replacement, which I'm pretty happy with.
Well, Duggo's one of those guys that, you know, started as a midfielder forward.
Did you always think he was going to go mid by the end of it all?
Well, I think he's a little bit like Shannon Hearn, where I know everyone's desperate to get him into the midfield and get the quality and the kick, and we see it all the time now, and he's probably becoming more consistent at it as he gets older, but he's been one of those guys that always looks more comfortable behind the ball. That's my opinion, but clearly, I think, with me not having been at the club for 3 years now, I think he's probably changed. I think he has it in him now to play consistent footy. As a midfielder, you know, I'm not saying you don't have to as a backman, but as a midfielder, you need consistent effort. You need consistent performance to be a really good one. And I think he's done that this year. He's been one of West Coast's best players, and he probably adds something a little different to that midfield as well, which is exciting. So
fourth quarter, Oscar Allen jams the set shot goal home. Marek follows up. He drills his. The celebration on the bloke, both of them, but particularly Ivan Marek. He's grabbing the jumper. Been here 8 weeks. Nickname.
Really?
Yeah.
I was like, I swear he played for Richmond. Very good.
So he's grabbed the jumper. The emotion that this bloke has felt from being a part of this fabric of the boys for 8 weeks gets me a bit emotional sort of thinking about it. They're all in, really. They are thinking they're going to pitch this match, and it shows exactly what this game is worth to these players.
What a moment for Ryan Marek. I mean, to do that, from where he's come from, I know, you know, all this stuff about what a great story, he's back in shelves, all that stuff, I know.
Hasn't missed a game.
Mate, he has not missed a game, but like you said, mate, to be grabbing the jumper, bit of carry-on, which I absolutely love. Could not love the carry-on anymore, so don't get me wrong about that.
Looking like they're playing to win, though, Scully, is more the where I'm going to here.
Yeah, look, I agree. Look, I know there's been some chat about it. You know, all over the place, and I've had a bit of tongue-in-cheek back and forth with a few people, which has been enjoyable. But to break that play down after Ryan Marek kicks the goal, and if I'm not speaking out of school, what I could see from behind the goal vision, centre bounce out of that, West Coast put 2 men behind the ball, so the wingers go behind the footy, so it gives them 8 behind the ball. Bit of a scrimmage, bit of a back and forth, there's a secondary stoppage. So from that first stoppage, it's 6-6-6, the centre bounce, you can't do anything. The secondary stoppage, you can do what you like. You've got a few options. They've got +2 behind the ball. Essendon, well coached, go and equalise those numbers. So it means that it's 8v8 behind the footy. You can put another one back. So where you pull him from, maybe it's the centre half forward, maybe it's a half forward flank, maybe it's a midfield. There's different ways clubs different levers they can pull.
And that's what Simo's referring to with no +1, is in no sending someone forward, presumably, or another midfielder back.
So you can see the footage. Simo's clearly saying no +1. I think he's meant don't send another one back, because there has to be a point where you stop. You can't have 12 behind the ball because it rips apart your midfield too much. Now, West Coast were dominated at clearance in this game, or at least beaten by Essendon. I think West Coast were concerned with losing that stoppage. The one thing that you can do to stop the ball getting down there is win the clearance. Win the clearance, doesn't matter how many blokes you got behind the ball. So put all that into relevance. I think that's good to understand. But the other part is, this is a young team, and we've heard from Simo throughout the year, they haven't had a lot of match simulation at training. They haven't been in this situation in a game this year because they haven't been close enough. So there would have been half the team that's never seen that situation in your life. And I can say from my point of view as a player, if you haven't practiced it and you haven't played it, you don't know. And you can play all the junior footy you like, you can do what you like coming through into the AFL level. But once you get to the AFL level and you're in that situation, the only way you learn is either being in it or doing a year or two of practice of those moments. And they haven't had that yet.
Just quickly, so we got the fourth quarter. Zerk Thatcher's brilliant mark in the dying stages of the fourth quarter. No dramas with this call. So the Oscar Allen, just a quick, little side glance behind. What do I think? I think you probably can't pay that in the context of where the game is at and whether that's the right call or not to have different calls if it's the fourth quarter, if it's that close to goal. But to the letter of the law, what are you taking the eyes off the ball for to make contact with someone?
Yeah, so I made a living of doing this as a backman, so I couldn't love it anymore. Essendon beautifully set up. And now, look, could you get called for that? Potentially. But like I said, I used to do that every game, 10 times a game. Yes, there's a big moment late in the game. And credit to West Coast, they get that entry. They do have a chance. They have their best player in Oscar Allen having a jump at it. But that's just good backman craft for mine. So
Yowie definitely had his hands full in the second term, much like many of the defenders having to line up against Kyle Langford. This bloke's doing some pretty mercurial stuff. His dead-eye set shot with his accuracy, and some of the delivery to him was pinpoint. But Yowie's ended up playing 20 more minutes than he was meant to in the terms of minutes cap. The coaches are like, we want to win this game, send him out for even more. And how's the energy he's got in this passage, Scully? 2 for 1.
I saw this. Kyle Langford's been spoken about in all Australian teams at the moment, so you got to give credit there. But I'm not sure if that's a mark. But the two running back with the flight, he's a senior player. He's a dual best and fairest winner. He's an All-Australian.
But he's done all that. He's done a halfback All-Australian, but he's done some of his best work for the club. Let me throw to you.
Well,
where does he start next year with a fully fit emerging Eagles midfield? Get your defending hat off for a minute. Where's best for him for this club?
Mate, I honestly, I know I've got the backman's hat on. I honestly see his best footy in the back line at the moment. The question I'd ask back at you is, what would you rather? An in and out, unfit Elliot Yeo that's not getting on the park because of the brutality your body goes through as a midfielder, or Elliot Yeo playing off a back flank?
But is that what's happening to him? Is it because it's pre-seasons it's happening? It's not a wear and tear of 10, 15 games in?
Thumper.
Is it the load of pre-seasons? Is that what you're getting at?
I'm telling you right now, the load is different to what you do as a backman to as a midfielder, and I just think he plays terrific footy in the back line.
He plays good footy anywhere. That's the debate, though, isn't it?
It sounds like you want him in the midfield. I want him in the back line. You're asking me. I want him in the back line because of things like that. He runs in straight lines. He plays good footy behind the ball. I think he reacts well with the ball coming at him. Yes, I know he's a beast inside, but they've got some numbers in there. Tim Kelly is having an all-time season this year. I think they can cover in the midfield. I like Elliot Yeo on the back flank.
You got the runs on the board, mate. We'll listen to yourself. What about Bailey Williams? The club's done well to get him off, so he'll be playing in the RAC Derby Saturday night. For this hit on Redman, been dismissed, downgraded, and we're going to see him line up. Pretty important player to come out, particularly the matchup against the Dockers this weekend. You happy the call was made here?
Hopefully Bailey's recovered from the tribunal hearing. I think it was a long one, but I
think he had to establish that he wasn't Bailey Williams from the Bulldogs.
Yes.
He had to get himself right.
So you should remember Bailey is a ruckman, so that question may have caused some issues. Big Baz, important to the team. he's as important player as West Coast have right now because of the depth they have at that position. And it's going to come up against Luke Jackson in a derby. I'm excited to see that. They're actually both pretty similar players, good around the ball, good clearance players, running jumpers. I think Bailey probably, if he's had trouble this year in the ruckers, against those big, brutey ruckmen that sort of get their body in the position, push him out of the way, he wants to run and jump. So does Luke Jackson. So we're going to have a jump off.
Remember, Eagles fans, to be there Saturday night's showdown against the Dockers. RAC Derby number 57. You played in a few of them, Scully, and RAC are, of course, the Derby partner. They've got their mobile virtual reality road safety set on the fan zone, level 1. You'll probably fail that one. There's a chopper flying over. The RAC rescue chopper just prior to bounce down. Just want to tip Aussie off that that's probably happening. You don't want them clashing. Could be a bit messy.
Correct.
On the field.
It depends if that driving thing is a manual or not. I can't drive manual.
That's embarrassing. I learned that this week. That's no good from you. But everyone who is attending, you'll notice the pre-game ceremony to honour Police Constable Anthony Woods, starting at 6:05. A very special moment to commemorate the life of an officer who passed away in the line of duty. Both sides coming off tough losses, Scully. I think it was the lowest cumulative points lost total in their history, 1.3 points.
Yep.
What are we expecting from the game, you reckon?
Well, I mean, at least I think we're going to have a competitive game. Probably midway through this year, as the Dockers were making a run towards the bye, it really looked like they'd got their mojo back and they were finals bound by the looks of things. But they've fallen away a little bit. Clearly a good performance last week against Brisbane. This matchup's got a lot. The Dockers' strengths, I would say, are their midfield, Sarong and Brayshaw, with Jackson jumping around now, and their backline. Their backline hasn't been as consistent as they were last year, but their backline's a good one, and so they're going to have to curtail Oscar Allen, of course. West Coast, on the other hand, their strengths behind the footy. McGovern back in the team, Elliot Yeo back there now. A young midfield with Tim Kelly playing really well. Kicking into a forward line with some senior players back now. So I just think across the board there's some good matchups and I'm looking forward to it.
Last but certainly not least, I wanted to save your mate, Premiership, Norm Smith Medalist, the skipper, calls time on a sensational career, a champion bloke, so massive for the culture of this footy club, an absolute debacle. He never got an All-Australian nod, in my opinion. The body just keeps letting him down though, Scully, and a decision that I'm sure he wrestled with for many months.
I don't think there's any exact moment in time you come to a decision like this. For me, it was probably on my mind for a lot of the year about, I wanted to see how the year panned out. And then when I hurt myself against Carlton, obviously the thought process picked up a notch. But, as much as my last 3 years have been, riddled with injury, I'm so grateful that for most of my career I had a really good run at it. And not a lot of players get to say that by the end of their career. So, I feel very lucky. I honestly think the first day I walked in the club, I felt privileged to rub shoulders with some of the guys who were here. Obviously, Pritter was here, Daniel Kerr, Coxie, Bung was already here, but people I'd watched, through my teen years dominate the game, and so it was a privilege to be a part of it with them. But I remember at Subi Oval, there was all this memorabilia up and down the hallways and on the walls in the players' lounge, and it was all newspaper clippings from their 92 and 94, their 06 flag, articles on, Tommy Kemp and Ross Glendenning and legends of the club. And I just felt so a part of the club straight away and just wanted to be a part of what those guys had done. And obviously going through what I went through when my sister died, you go through that stuff with people like the footy club and your teammates, and I think it builds your connection. And I can honestly say there's never been a second where I've contemplated going anywhere else. Always wanted to be a one club player, particularly for this club, and always wanted to try and do everything I could to make my teammates and our fans proud.
I have not forgotten about him, but I did forget that we hadn't spoken about him. Shannon Hearn and then Luke Shuey in 2 weeks. They're probably two of my favourite teammates I've ever played with. So, just thinking about memories of Boots. I wrote an article today actually, and I wrote an article about Shannon last week, an article about Luke this week. Shannon, I had sort of some stuff around his character and his humour around things that happened on the field. I just had some really quirky memories of his. Luke, look, we all know, you just reeled them off, right? Norm Smith Medalist, 2-time best and fairest winner 2016, 2019. He's captain of the footy club. kick goals after the siren. We know what he's done as a footballer, but writing this article, I remembered my favourite moment. It was 2012. My old man had passed away. I came back to the footy club because I wanted to be around people. I ran into him first. He was younger than me. He was 20 years old at the time. Knew exactly what I needed at the time. We went through that week. We got in the race. I was in the race, and it was like this energy I've never experienced before. Boots was crying in the race, which at the time I was like, "Don't you do that? We're about to go and play." But his emotion, I knew he had my back. He then flew the next week, like it was just a debacle. We had the funeral the next week. Luke, without me knowing, flew to Geelong, went all the way down to Janjuk Surf Club with Scott Selwood at the time, Trevor Nisbet and Ian Miller. They came all the way down, they were all the way there. It was in the middle of the week. They flew back for a game against Richmond the week after, and we won that game. We won the Hawthorn game by 3 points. We won the Richmond game by 5 points. And the Luke Shuey part was like, this is just a kid that, we knew each other, but we didn't have that bond. And basically from that moment on, we've been best mates. So there's lots of things he's done on the field, but I'll remember him for that sort of stuff.
Well said, Scully. Big turnouts expected for the Crows game now, round 24, Bunga and Boots, hopefully bidding farewell together in front of a packed crowd. But of course, one game at a time, it's RAC Derby this Saturday night. Scully, you'll be there sideline, no doubt.
Looking forward to it.
Should be a cracker, mate.